Welcome back to Ground Pass. Hello, everyone.
Oh, hello. I'm not alone here.
I'm back.
This is like when you're if you're in college and your roommate goes away for a couple of weeks and then suddenly you walk back in and they're like, "Oh, you're here."
I'm no longer alone. I am back, everyone. How has everyone been doing? I needed a bit of a break from podcasting after the French Open, and Nick did a fabulous job of carrying the podcast through and did two absolutely fantastic mini pods, the last of which I'm still not over. If you haven't listened to it yet, you really should, because it's one of my favorite episodes of Ground Pass. Weirdly enough, me just listening to Nick sort of be philosophical about stories and why we love tennis. And yeah, that was a good one, Nick. Really good.
Thank you. I mean, look, clearly it came out better than I thought it would, which basically... I felt like I was driving along some kind of English country road where everything was swerving left and right and probably going back on myself a couple of times.
I loved it. I truly recommend. If you want to know, I think it was such a casual start to this podcast and just sort of meandering and... Yeah, for really. And, I know we wanted to hit the casual fan. We wanted to hit people who are new to tennis and trying to get into tennis. But, we were sort of going on our way and it just felt so right. You talking about it the way you did and like us, it's not always about who wins. That's not the only story. That's part of it. But there are just so many other stories that a ground pass, funny enough, see what I did there? A ground pass gets you to those outside courts where some of the most remarkable stories are happening at a tennis tournament. So if you're on this journey with us, stick with it because we're having a lot of fun. And yeah, so I'm super excited and yet incredibly surprised and maybe not ready that Wimbledon is here. How did that happen?
I'm the complete opposite because I've been spending the last few weeks thinking about nothing but Wimbledon to a certain extent.
Really?
Yeah, well, for me, obviously Wimbledon's my favorite time of the tennis calendar. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I grew up watching it and watching all the grass and trying to work out sort of who was looking good. And yeah, I'm about ready. But I've obviously been planning it. We'll get to it later. I've been planning this Wimbledon trip that I've got coming up for a long time. And so for me, that's kind of building up in my head. But even with this, I'm following details and looking at who's looking good for Wimbledon because, it's very interesting trying to figure out what story is going to come from because we don't get grass tennis other than in the month of June and July. So for me, it's okay, this is a good opportunity to kind of see who I like the look of. So there we go.
Yeah, there isn't, and I think that's what it is. There isn't that much of a buildup. So, Australian Open happens, and then you come down from that, and then you start building up, and then you get to the clay, and then there's all this anticipation, and then it leads to Roland Garros, and then I'm still not over Roland Garros, and it's Wimbledon. There isn't that much of a buildup. And I think there's a lot of talk of, extending the grass court season, which I would love because I remember seeing, you've been on the clay for so long and I love the dirt. Believe you me, it's my favorite surface. I love clay, but there is a freshness to when you see the first images of Queens of just that beautiful green grass and then the sun was shining. I mean, the weather was perfect. Not all the time throughout this grass season, but there were some moments where just looking at that and it just said summer, it was like lawn tennis. It's time for summer. But I'm just not prepared for Grand Slam. So the fact that it starts tomorrow is insane. But Wimbledon starts tomorrow. And Nick, you are going. You just talked a little bit about it. When are you going to be at Wimbledon?
So we're recording this on Sunday. I will be taking a train to London from where I live on Monday. I'm going to be meeting up with my mum. That sounds so wrong. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm not American. My mum. I tried, guys. I can't pretend.
Couldn't do it.
Do you know what? I have to be British. This is who I am. My mum. Spell it with a Y. I don't understand why. With a U even. What wrong letter of the alphabet? This might have to get cut.
U. It's a U.
What day is it? So I'm on Sunday. We're going to meet up with my mum on Monday, and we're basically staying overnight near Wimbledon, and we're going to go on Tuesday and Wednesday. We have Court 2 tickets. I may cheekily sneak out and have a look at some ground matches during it, because that's probably where some of the juicier matches might get put. Court 2 tends to be where they'll put seeds they've run out of space for, or Brits. So depending on which players are on, I might sneak out and see who's around the grounds on those 2 days. And then on Thursday, I have a centre court ticket, so I will be there. I have very specific hopes for who's going to be on that court. And
let me guess, who does Nick want to see on center court on Thursday?
There is a very, very good chance that it could happen, provided things don't go horribly wrong in the first round. But we'll get to that, and then I'll be traveling back to my house on the train on Friday. I'm literally getting up first thing, jumping on a train as early as I can to get back to my house to then watch the tennis, so miss as little as possible, and then have my multi-screen set up and whatnot for like that Friday and then the weekend.
Nick, you're gonna have to post a photo of you running to the train at 5 a.m. So a friend of ours, Damien, on Twitter, he just posted this photo where he got on a train at 5 a.m. to go watch, I think it was an ITF. It wasn't even a challenger. I think it was like a M25 match. And he got on the train at 5 a.m. to go watch a final. And that, friends, is dedication.
Where was the event?
Where was it? It was somewhere, I can't remember. I'll find it.
Because he does go to the same challenger every year in Poland.
Maybe that's the one. Maybe that's what it was. But I thought it was pretty impressive to get on a train that early for the tennis. But Damien, if anyone would do it, Damien would do it. Okay, so Nick will be at Wimbledon. We will see if because Nick, you're going to be with your mom doing things. We'll see if we'll get a little bit of ground pass on site content from Nick, to be determined, but stick to our social media channels and maybe you'll get a little video of the grounds or Nick telling us about his day, which will be excellent. If you have been listening to his mini pods, you know it's one to expect. But before we go into Wimbledon, what we think about it, let's just do a quick hit of what happened this past week. We had some winners, some really great stories. The men and women were at Eastbourne, even though it was a different level tournament. For the men, it was a 250. For the women, it was a 500. And then the men were in Mallorca. The women were in Bad Homburg as well. So on the ATP side, we had Taylor Fritz breaking records, winning his third Eastbourne title, and now he is known as Taylor. Taylor is his new name.
Okay.
I wonder.
I'm sorry.
I can't think of
no. No. Grasaka, I could cope with. Taylor, no, that does not work at all. I am sorry, Taylor Fritz fans. He is amazing on grass. I think he has an opportunity to do really, really well at Wimbledon this year, but Taylor does not work whatsoever. I am going to make this statement right now. It's not on. I do not want to hear that again.
Let us have our nicknames.
I'm okay with your nicknames.
Nick, you've got to let us have them.
I'm okay with nicknames. I said Grasaka was okay, but like... no.
We shall not speak of the other.
Not this one. This is like the stretch, the one of the biggest stretches of the English language I have ever heard. He deserves some kind of nickname, but can we just do better than that?
I broke Nick. He finally happened. He put his foot down. No more. But great for him on grass. You know, it seems it's a title, not a title, it's a tournament he really loves, and he's won it now for the third time, which is great. And over in Mallorca, Alejandro Tabilo now plays on grass. He has had the most phenomenal year. If you guys don't know, we've talked about him from time to time on the podcast, but I really discovered him during the Golden Swing, which is the clay court tournament like section that happens right after the Australian Open. He did well there, and now here he is. He got to a final on grass, which means this season he and Taylor Fritz also actually have this sort of achievement, is that they have reached a final on every surface this year, clay, hard, and grass. And then he won the title on grass. So he's coming into Wimbledon, you know, with really, really good form, but it's also so impressive. He's now number 19 in the live rankings. So really great season that Alejandro Tabilo is having, from Chile, by the way.
And I think this is an opportunity for people at Wimbledon to discover Tabilo, because this is like, it might be his first Wimbledon. If it's not his first, it's his second visit. And he's definitely been having a great year in building up. And I think that just emphasizes that there's some potential here with that Mallorca win. Obviously, that's where Chris Eubanks won his title last year, that then gave him the momentum to get to the quarters at Wimbledon. Tabilo is going to be a name that I would recommend anyone with a ground pass go and check out, because he's got a very exciting game. And I would not be surprised if we saw him doing pretty well at SW19.
On the women's side, you know, we had Eastbourne, which was won by Daria Kazatkina, and Bad Homburg by Diana Schneider. Nick, you haven't really caught up on the tennis because Nick also had a little bit of a break. But did you catch any of their matches throughout the tournaments?
No. So for those maybe who may be interested, I have literally just got back from a weekend with my friends, and I had a complete social media blackout for 2 days. So I literally walked in my front door and then went, right, what happened? I haven't got a clue. So Kasatkina, I did catch her match with Raducanu, and I managed to catch a bit of the semi-final with Paolini before I left. I think Kasatkina doing well at Eastbourne doesn't surprise me. She's a finalist from last year, she is... I think she did really well in the wind at Eastbourne. I think her game of being so consistent, and maybe not necessarily, she can hit through the ball, but she chooses not to most of the time. That really helped her control conditions. I have no idea what the final was like. It may have been a bit calmer, but I think that's how she got there. Diana Schneider is a name that people have been excited about for a long time. She's got a big game, and her winning Bad Homburg, I think she took the opportunity of, like, there were a lot of players in that field who had a great opportunity for the biggest title of their career so far, in there with Emma Navarro and Victoria Tomova, and the eventual beaten finalist Donna Vekic. And actually, you know, when I saw the results, I had this sort of weird mixed feelings, because Kasatkina I was happy for. I'm always happy to see her doing well, and, like, you know, get that title on grass, and, like, she maybe make up a little bit for not winning Eastbourne last year. Diana Schneider, it's always exciting to see someone make a big breakthrough. But then, if I look at the finalists, Leila Fernandez is one of my favourite players. So I was a little gutted that she couldn't get the job done, because she's actually been playing really well in Birmingham and Eastbourne. And I wasn't expecting her to look so good on grass, but she kind of is, actually.
And she beat Madison Keys, who was the winner last year, to get to the finals. I really actually didn't think she was going to get through that match, and she played really well.
I missed that one, unfortunately, because the BBC wasn't showing it. So really pleased for her to get through that match, and maybe the final's too much of a stretch, who knows? But I again didn't see it. But the other one with Donna Vekic, this is her third WTA 500 final, and she's lost another one. And she's one of those players, like, for years we've been talking about her, like, when's she going to make kind of that next big step in her career, and she just keeps hitting that wall. And the match at Schneider was a massive opportunity. Now, again, I didn't see it. Schneider's a real fighter of a player. She probably made it a complete nightmare for Vekic. But again, that's that mixed feeling of, oh, Donna, come on. Like, when's it going to happen?
Yeah. Like, when are you gonna get over that hump? You are right, especially with Vekic. And I actually did think this would be the one. Because she's gotten there so many times.
And she's good on grass.
She's looking so good. Yeah, and she's good on grass, exactly. She's going to be one of the players to watch at Wimbledon. But and I think you hit the note correctly. The two winners are definitely people who I've been looking for to win titles, and Kasatkina hasn't won one in a long time. So I'm very happy for the winners, but I'm also pretty sad for the losers, because they're also people who you're wanting to make that step to finally, move forward a little bit. But yeah, it was good. I liked Eastbourne. There were other stories in Eastbourne on the women's side that I was following. Emma Raducanu was there, and I thought it was really cool. They showed that video of her hitting with Leylah Fernandez, and Leylah gave an interview saying they literally haven't hit since the US Open that they were in the final together at, which I thought was crazy, but it's nice to see them doing that
when
together.
The quarterfinals got set, I was like, please tell me they're not going to peak at the same time again. We're going to do another Emma Leylah final in Eastbourne. Like what is it about these two that sort of time everything at the same time?
Exactly. But so that was nice to see. It was nice to see Emma's match against Sloane Stephens. That gave me hope for Emma's future. Like, seeing her play like that was, because I don't know, I'd never seen her have that sort of maybe aggression is too strong a word, but she was hitting so hard and just like and determined. She was so determined to win. Like, I loved seeing that. So yeah, Emma Raducanu was a great story out of Eastbourne for me too.
Interesting you picked Emma's match against Sloane. I mean, first of all, the big hitting that Emma is producing and being a bit more, you're right, aggressive, is like she's going for things a bit more than she was recently. And we were starting to see that over clay, starting at Billie Jean King Cup and then in Stuttgart. We've been seeing that a little bit, and like she's starting to beat players that she should be beating. It's the Pegula match that caught my eye more than the Stephens match. The Stephens match, she was good, but the Pegula match, she did something that she's never done before, as far as I'm aware. Well, it was her first ever top 10 win against a top 10 player, which is crazy to think for a Grand Slam champion who someone's already won one. Right. But then the other thing is she saved match point on the way. And I don't know if Emma's ever won a match from match point down, but for me, that also gives hope that there's that, you're right, that mentality, that will to win is so much, I don't know if it's stronger, but it's manifesting in a way that she is up for a fight even when her back's against the wall, because it was for a lot of that match. And it definitely deserved to go 3 sets. And then for much of the third set, she was the better player. And that was good to see. She just struggled a little bit in the wind in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, no, totally. Wow, I had totally forgotten the Pegula match, which is crazy because that was also a very, very good one. She had a couple of good matches there. So yeah, that was this week. Now we move forward. Wimbledon starts tomorrow. I still can't believe it. The draw happened. I watched some qualifying matches, which was great. I didn't remember this from last year, because I think I remember watching the qualifying matches on YouTube, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But ESPN had some of the qualifying matches on, so I was really happy and got to watch some of that. For those who don't know, because Wimbledon's a little different, the qualifying matches for Wimbledon don't happen at Wimbledon.
That's right.
They happen somewhere else. Where do they happen, Nick?
They happen at Roehampton, which historically is actually the site where Wimbledon was originally, or very close to it. Over 100 years ago. There's a story about why Wimbledon moved, which is quite cool. But essentially, so they go there. And the reason for that is, unlike playing hard, where you can qualify on the set, you can play on it. Obviously, grass courts change a lot over it and get worn out, and so to preserve the court as much as possible for the championships, the qualifying happens in Roehampton. Wimbledon are actually trying to bring qualifying on site, but they want to build some more tennis courts. They want to buy an abandoned golf course that's like next door, but they're currently having some planning permission issues with the local residents, which is the most Middle England thing you could hear. But yeah, that is what's happening. Is that like they put up with the tennis every year, but they don't want to spoil their nice view. And so that's kind of going on. But yeah, in terms of like that little history tidbit, the Wimbledon was at somewhere else. It was at Church Road or something like that. Originally, that's where and then they had to move it because they didn't have the capacity for the amount of people who started coming to want to watch Wimbledon, especially when Suzanne Longland started playing, and there was just like loads of people just queuing up trying to watch her matches. It got to the point where like they were scheduling her matches for when the Queen could visit because she was that big a name, and the Queen wanted to see her. Yeah. Obviously not the most recent Queen, but yeah, that was so they went, oh great, we're gonna have to build a new site, aren't we? So that's what they did. They just moved. But the historic site is still more or less where qualifying takes place.
Well, that's where it was. It was really great to watch. So we're going to jump into talking about some stories that could, coming out of Wimbledon could be affected by the tournament. And then also what matches that we think or we are excited for, at least in the draw. So stories, first of all, it's Andy Murray. Andy Murray is the story of Wimbledon. If you don't know, he was playing against Jordan Thompson at Queen's, and when he came out, I watched this match, and it was heartbreaking because he came out, and even in the warm up, he was limping, and I thought, what's happening? Andy Murray already walks funny, so I wasn't sure if it was just Andy Murray being Andy Murray, or if there was something wrong. And we clearly discovered that there was something wrong. He lost feeling in his leg. So didn't know what was going to happen. He had surgery he had a cyst? Spinal cyst?
Spinal cyst, that's right.
Yeah, it was like in his back. So this, he's already said, is his last Wimbledon. He said he's not playing past the summer, is what Andy Murray has said. So this was devastating. And he had the surgery. He's in the draw. He's in the singles and doubles draw. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, there was a bit of a fiasco on Sunday where the ATP kind of jumped the gun and tweeted that he'd withdrawn based on a report from the British newspaper The Telegraph saying that they'd basically spoken to someone who basically said it wasn't looking good. That got very quickly retracted. And Andy's language since has been very much, he will decide at the last possible minute if he's playing or not. And that's his decision. That's his prerogative. I personally think if he thinks he has a chance of finishing the match, he's going to play it. Because he's got Thomas Machac in round one of the singles. Doubles wouldn't start until Wednesday or Thursday, but he would want to do it. Machac is, when I saw the draw, I was like, oh, not again, because Machac was the person he ruptured ankle ligaments against in Miami. It just seems like this young Czech player is destined to be the one who ends Andy Murray's whole career.
I couldn't believe the draw when I saw it. That was the one thing of the draw. I was like, no, not Thomas Mack.
I mean, I feel like there probably would have been worse names, but he was up there.
True.
I mean, imagine Andy Novak. Yeah. No, that probably
I was just thinking that. I was like, could you imagine? I don't know.
Maybe not. But actually, there'd be some people kind of weirdly up for that. But yeah, so I think I'm going to be optimistic and say Andy's going to play. I'm not going to be optimistic enough to say he's going to win his last match, but I think he will play his last Wimbledon match. In all likelihood, the last appearance we will see Andy Murray in a professional capacity will be the Olympics. That seems to be where we're heading here. But we'd like to see him. And do you know what? He seems fairly optimistic that everything would have healed for him to play doubles with Jamie Murray, which is obviously the dream. They haven't played doubles together for a while, but they do make a good team.
Yeah. So, one of our very, very early episodes of this podcast was reviewing the documentary Resurfacing, which is a documentary about Andy Murray going through his hip issues. And for anyone doubting that he's going to play because he just had surgery or anything, go watch that documentary.
Yeah, he's going to play if he can.
He's going to play. So that is the biggest story. Some other things, Novak also had his knee surgery coming out of the French Open. But based on sort of the type of surgery he had, everyone's comparing it to, or at least it seems like even Taylor Fritz has said it, like they had the exact same surgery. Taylor Fritz was it 22? Yeah, it was 22, had a very similar surgery, and he came back in 3 weeks.
I thought that was the meniscus thing that Djokovic has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the same one that, did I say Andy? I meant Novak.
I'm not 100% sure that, yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, based on, Taylor Fritz's recovery, it seems like Novak is totally fine and will play and will be in contention to win the title in all seriousness. One that I don't know if you saw this because you have kind of been away and off social media and news and all that stuff, but did you see the Arina Sabalenka story?
I have not checked social media since, actually, I don't think I've checked it since lunchtime on Friday. So over 48 hours ago.
Okay, so in press, her pre-tournament press, Arina Sabalenka says she's not fit. She has a shoulder injury that makes serving very painful and doesn't even know if she's going to play. So that was quite the news to receive after the draw in media. I think she had pulled out of, what tournament did she pull out of? Was it Bad Homburg?
She wasn't going to play it.
Berlin.
She wasn't going to play Bad Homburg. So she retired during her quarterfinal match in Berlin.
In Berlin?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it's basically whatever injury she had then. And it seems like all of a sudden she, at least from the clips I've seen of her talking about it, I think she's just trying to, just dampen down, don't put Arina Sabalenka to win, or, she's just trying to be realistic about her prospects right now. So
I'm going to put this
that
out
was
there.
Interesting.
It is interesting. However, it's kind of players put that kind of often play down their prospects, but still are going to go out there and compete and win. And you, Anastasia, as a Rafael Nadal fan, should be very familiar with this because he was doing this. He's done this a lot during his career, particularly a couple of years back.
This is actually a very Rafa move to make, to go to press and say, the foot, I don't know.
Oh, look, I won the French Open again. Well,
oh, well. But yeah, and then the last kind of story, and I don't know if it's a story, it's maybe something I'm just paying attention to too, but I'm sure people are as well. Everyone knows last Wimbledon, Chris Eubanks was one of the big stories that came out of it. He played so well. His ranking went way up. Last year was also the year where he broke into the top 100 for the first time at the Miami Open. Like, he was a big story that year. And he's coming into Wimbledon this year with a ton of points to defend. He hasn't had sort of the best season in terms of retaining those points and keeping himself in the top 100. And it's just one of those things where if he doesn't defend the points at Wimbledon, he might drop out of the 100 again. So that's just something I'm watching and hoping for the best for him because he does play well on grass. It's a good surface for him. I haven't really looked at his draw particularly deeply, but it's definitely one of those that I'm paying attention to, along with Frances Tiafoe, who hasn't really had quite the season. He stopped his relationship with Wayne Ferrer at the beginning of the year. He got a new coach, but then that didn't work out. And he then sort of hurt his knee at Queens. And so you're just sort of, hoping he can have a good tournament leading into the US swing, which is usually where, at least that's where his focus is these days. It's always getting to the US just before the US Open, building there, and then having a great US Open. So we will see how it goes for those two players. They're just two people I'm watching to see how they do and how this tournament can help lead into the US swing for them. Are there any specific stories for you that you're just following maybe?
In terms of like stories, I mean, like Andy Murray's kind of one of the big ones. I think I'm kind of looking at seeing how a lot of the Brits are going to do. You know, some of the Brits I've mentioned on the last podcast, like Fran Jones and Billy Harris. Yeah. I think I'm looking at sort of the draw. I think obviously you know that my attention is almost always on the women's draw. And so I think there's a few names in there I'm like, oh, I want to see how they do. I want to see, like, for different reasons, not because they're kind of struggling a bit, but because they've shown a little bit of potential. So, Harriet Dart had looked good on the grass, also a Brit.
Yeah.
I like the look of her. Another name I'm actually excited about, Robin Montgomery, who came through qualifying and has got a couple of wins on the main draws. And I think she's a dangerous player to have in your draw against you. She's currently establishing herself as a thorn in the side of the top 10, and she's still fairly young in her career. And so I think she's a player on the verge of a big breakthrough. So she's someone I think is worth keeping an eye on in terms of stories if you want to kind of go maybe a bit sort of deeper and like have a look around who might be on a ground pass.
Yeah. So you started looking at the draw. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the round one matches that we are excited for. And I can jump right in with the men's draw. We can actually just go back and forth. But the first thing that I saw, and I was like, pencil in, must watch, Ben Shelton is playing round one against Mattia Bellucci. And you might be thinking, who? Who now? Who is that? Well, Mattia Bellucci is an Italian player because every new player coming out now is Italian. The pasta is really strong in Italy. Did you see? Oh, wow. Did you see the tennis-shaped pasta? Did you see that?
There's Rome.
Now a tennis... Yes, there's now a tennis-shaped pasta, and I have to, post it somewhere.
I mean, look, the most Italian thing about Rome was that they had an official pasta provider.
This is true. But, no, Italian tennis is definitely having a moment. But Matteo Bellucci, he played through qualifying, and I've seen him, play random matches over the season. I've just been interested because he's had some good wins and, he's just another Italian player to follow. But he was playing in his last qualifying match, David Goffin, who David had a phenomenal run. He had just won a title on grass, was coming into qualifying, was on this match-winning streak. And I thought, oh, for sure he's going to get into the main draw of Wimbledon. They're 100%. And he won, I think he lost the first set, won the second, but I thought, oh, it's fine. By the way, there's this quirky thing that happens at the Wimbledon. I actually think it might be every Grand Slam where the last match of qualifying is out of 5 sets. Where
no, it's
all the other
it's just Wimbledon. It's just Wimbledon.
Is it just Wimbledon who does that? Okay, good. Because I was like, wait, I've never seen this before. But usually qualifying matches are best out of 3, but the last match in qualifying at Wimbledon is best out of 5. So I just thought, you know what? David Goffin's got this, and Matteo Bellucci won it, and he won it in such a gutsy sort of, he was going. I love it when players do this, where they're just sort of like, I'm going to win no matter what. And it was so fun to watch. I felt so bad for David Goffin, who was just playing so well. And then, of course, he draws Ben Shelton in the first round. And I'm just like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So I'm super excited for this match because Ben Shelton is someone who I think his game should work on grass 100%, but he's not exactly had a great grass court season so far this year. So should be an interesting first round match for sure. That's
I mean, you say that like you were phrasing it like it. Oh, Matteo Bellucci, he's looking so good and he draws Ben Shelton. I actually think it's a worse draw for Ben Shelton, to be honest. I think it's a nightmare for Ben because although his serve should work well on grass, he's not exactly asserting himself on the surface, and having someone like Bellucci who's full of confidence. Now, I think Bellucci's coming for Ben.
I think so too. It's gonna be an interesting watch. I'm excited for that one. Another one that just the Nate Jakub Mensik is playing Bublik in the first round. That should be another very interesting draw because Bublik is great on grass. He won the title last year. He had that great match against Rublev. He won. What did he win? He won Halle last year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah, and then he had the great match against Rublev last year. So Bublik, he's established on grass. He knows what he's doing. And then you have this young kid, Jakub Mensik, who I love his game. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. Pavel Kotov, who I just love watching him play. Like, I just love watching the kid play, is playing Jordan Thompson in the first round. Like, that's actually that's a very hipster pick by me. Like a very hipster. It's like Jordan Thompson, great on grass, and Pavel Kotov, who's just this teddy bear of a player. But at the same time, will randomly have these great results, like his match against Stan Wawrinka during the French Open, or when he played Yannick Sinner in Madrid. Like he's a very interesting player to watch. And it was actually weird, that match he had against Stan Wawrinka at the French Open. I almost thought that's his kid. It was like Stan Wawrinka playing with his child, because I feel like they're mirror images of each other. Just one's older and the other one's younger. But yeah, so that's an interesting one. I will be watching the match against Francis Tiafoe and Matteo Rinaldi because Francis is not in great form. Matteo is. So that should be interesting. Of course, Jack Draper and Elias Ymer. Elias Ymer is from Sweden. He qualified. He has actually surprisingly played a lot of main draw. I was looking at it, and he's played main draw of Wimbledon 4 times, I think. So he actually has a lot of experience. But Jack Draper is now the number 1 Brit and is looking really, really, really good on grass. So excited to see his first match, because they're probably going to put that. Don't you think they'll put that on center court, or maybe court 1?
Which half of the draw is Jack in? Is he in he's in the Djokovic half? So
yes,
that means he's going to be on day 2. There's a good chance he's going to be at least court 1. It's going to be at least court 1 or center. I would imagine. We know centre on Tuesday is going to... No, I think he's going to go court 1, because centre court on Tuesday will probably be... It's got to be Marketa Vondrousova doing her opening match, because by tradition, the defending women's champion opens play on the opening Tuesday. Yeah. Like the men's defending champion opens play on centre court on the Monday. So we know Carlos Alcaraz is going to be first match on Monday on centre. So Vondrousova... I reckon they're going to put Novak on centre, and I reckon they're going to put Andy's match on centre, because he's playing Mahac and they're in the same half of the draw. So I think Draper will have to deal with court 1 for his opener.
Yeah. Well, those are some of the matches I have going. What are you looking at in?
Okay, so when I said like
draw?
5 or 6, I kept on saying, like, seeing more and going, oh wait, there's that one and there's that one, there's that one. So I'll rattle through it a little bit. The one that everyone kind of went crazy about when the draw came out was Iga Swiatek against Sofia Kenin, because it's 2 Grand Slam champions meeting in the opening round, and it's the second time Swiatek and Kenin have played in the opening round of a slam this year. A lot's been made about Iga's draw.
There's one more reason, though.
Sorry?
There's one more reason. Sofia Kenin is the one who kicked out Coco Gauff last year in the first round. Yeah. So Sofia Kenin...
Danger time. And I normally root for Iga. I'm rooting for even more this time, because there is a good chance that I'm going to be at Wimbledon on Thursday. If Iga can get to round 2, there's a good chance she's on centre court.
Yeah.
On the Tuesday. It's not guaranteed, because, they might want to let Rybakina play on it. as well, and she's a former champion.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're going to want to put the number one seed on centre court at some point, and like earlier the better, I would imagine. So I would think that that's probably, it's not guaranteed, but like I would love to see that happen because then I'd be there for it. But she's got to get through Sophia Kenin, who's such a massive challenge. But yeah, that's kind of like the headline for that one. Who else? There's a few like hipster picks in there. If you want drama, Aya Tomljanovic against Jelena Ostapenko is a first round match. If you're not familiar with why there's drama, they played at Wimbledon 2 years ago and it was a very fiery encounter. There was definitely some there were some moments of like back and forth between the players that didn't involve a tennis ball and involved their words. Where Ostapenko questioned Tomljanovic's professionalism or vice versa. I think they both just basically slagged each other off, and the fact there's a rematch now means that anyone who loves a bit of Real Housewives style drama on a tennis court is gonna be watching that one. You've got Barbora Krejcikova against Veronika Kudermetova. Those are two players who are got well-established careers. You want a sort of a super niche match between two very good grass court players. Like, this is my real ground pass. If you're going to Wimbledon on a ground pass, go seek it out because it's going to be good tennis. Victoria Golubic against Hule Niemeyer. They're both very experienced grass court players. They both come alive on the surface for very different reasons. Golubic has got that wonderful one-handed backhand, a bit of variety in her game. Hule Niemeyer is a ball smasher and absolutely loves grass. And they're both former Wimbledon quarter-finalists. Who else? A couple of others I wanted to highlight. Karolina Pliskova is playing the Bad Homburg champion, Diana Schneider, in the first round. That's going to be good. Cannot call which way that's going to go because Schneider's got obviously just won a grass court title. Pliskova is a former Wimbledon finalist.
Yeah. I totally missed that one.
Yeah, that's going to be some big hitting there. That's going to be some big games going on in that one.
What about what I'm calling the battle of the teenagers? Mira Andreeva
Brenda
and
Kvitova.
Yeah.
Yes. So Brenda Kvitova is 16, Mira Andreeva is 17. This sounds already like the start of a Sound of Music production. And that's an interesting first round for those who are interested in the future of the game. If I'm honest, I think Mira is a little bit further developed and is the heavy favourite for that match, but those two could well run into each other now many, many times over the next 20 years. So if you want to see
and I don't know,
number one in that one, go for it.
Yeah. I have to say, I saw Brenda play Katie Boulter in Miami. Like, she was winning that match if she hadn't gotten a heat stroke. Like, I was actually very surprised because that was when, we were all on the Katie Boulter train and Katie was doing so well. And I remember going to see that match thinking, oh, this is going to be, whatever, Katie Boulter. And Brenda really put up a fight and was going to win it if she hadn't, suffered from a little bit of heat stroke there. But I'm excited for that one because I actually don't know if Mira will get through it. But who knows?
I think she will. I'm kind of on board the Mira Andreeva hype train at the moment after that French Open semi.
Yeah.
And after, but more.
Did you see that photo with her and? Oh, you probably haven't. You've been off social media, but this great photo of her and why am I spacing? Won Wimbledon when she was 16 or 17.
Hingis, Sharapova.
17,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it is 20 years since Sharapova won Wimbledon as a 17-year-old. In a very similar position, ranking-wise, to where Mira is now. I feel like that symmetry is too perfect for something like that to happen again, but you never know.
Too perfect. I think it's a little too on the nose, but who knows? Someone put a post on Twitter about how Mira will be exactly the same age on the day of the final that she was when she won it. And this is
like this is like the level of ridiculous. I got two more.
Yes. Two more. Yes. Go ahead.
Two more. Right. The Brits are going to be paying attention to this one. And this is the first round match that I think could be the highest quality. Ekaterina Alexandrova against Emma Raducanu. Nightmare draw for both players because Alexandrova loves grass. Emma Raducanu loves a crowd. And I'm just going to see which one of those two is going to be stronger. And I genuinely don't know which way to call it because I could see either of them winning it. And that's going to be on centre court after Carlos Alcaraz's match on Monday. So check that out if you can. And then the last one is kind of going for the battle of the teenagers, the battle of the veterans. And I think actually the winner of these matches play each other. Paula Badosa is playing Karolina Muchova.
That was another one.
Yeah. Paula, obviously, on the comeback trail a little bit already. Another player who's kind of constantly playing through pain at the minute. Karolina Muchova has literally just come back after wrist surgery. Like, her first tournament back was Eastbourne, hits the ground running, makes the quarterfinals. She loves grass. And the fact that she looks so good so quickly is a positive. Muchova's one of those players right now who everyone says she will win a Grand Slam if she doesn't get injured. The trouble is she gets injured every single year at the minute. So, her body just does not sort of hold up for very long periods of time. But if it holds up over a slam, this could be it. But I reckon, given the way those two are playing, given the way they're both fighters, that's going to be a really, really good match to go and check out. And again, I suspect that's going to be a ground pass match.
Yeah. Okay, quick hit on doubles, just a few doubles teams that I'm going to be looking out for and, watching, the best doubles team in the world. Thomas Mahak and Triple Z are playing again together. They're my favorite doubles team.
Is it Mahak
I
or
love
Mahach?
watching them play. We're going to have to go to the ATP pronunciation video to find out. Because, by the way, if you ever wondered, and I try to do it from time to time when I'm not sure, but the ATP and the WTA actually have it, where if you look up a player on their website, there is an audio sort of clip that you can listen to of the player pronouncing their own
There
name.
is a caveat to this. I mean, I don't know if the ATP, this is a problem for, but definitely for the WTA, if a player is not high enough ranked, they don't bother putting a thing up.
This is true.
So if suddenly there's a new player who's ranked 600 who bursts onto the scene with a really complicated name for English speakers or native English speakers to kind of get their sort of tongue around, you're kind of stuck. And I had this problem with Sarah Balek, who is a teenager coming on the scene, and I had a commentator call her Bayek, thought that's what it was, until someone who was who knew Czech corrected me very harshly on it.
And said no. So yes, it's not a foolproof, solution, but they are available there. But we'll be watching them. We'll be watching Harry Hiliavara and Henry Patton play. Only because I listened to one of their coaches' podcasts. So I really love just listening to how they do on tour. Dan Evans and I think it's Searle.
Henry Searle, yeah.
Searle?
Yeah, Searle.
Henry
That's
Searle.
Right.
I feel like they're brothers. I don't know why. I feel like they're related, even though they're not.
What makes you think that? Because they're very different.
I don't know. They're very different, but they almost have the same attitude. I don't know what it is.
I don't know about what that says about Dan Evans, given Dan Evans is a man in his 30s and Henry Searle is an 18-year-old.
Maybe I watched them play at
Nottingham.
What was the tournament? Was it not? Yes, I watched them play against each other, and I thought when I saw they had paired up for doubles, I thought yes.
Well, I'm glad that fiery match didn't crash and cause anything to crash and burn.
No, it didn't. And then of course Murray and Murray. I'm just gonna hope for the best and hope they win the doubles title. That's just gonna be my hopeful thinking throughout it all. But I will be following Murray and Murray through the doubles draw. Any women's of course, Sarah Rani and Jasmine Paolini are playing.
I'm going to be honest, I have no idea because the doubles draw came out during my social media blackout.
Yes. Yes, it did. But Goff and Pegula together again, which is great. Paolini and Irani, I said. Townsend is now paired up with Siniakova. So that should be
That's
interesting.
a dangerous combo.
Yeah. So that should be really, really fun. What I'm seeing a lot of too is a lot of possible Olympic doubles trying out at Wimbledon, which is nice to see. So it's almost sort of a preview. And, especially the ones that haven't played before, like Beatrice Haddad Maya is playing with a player I've never heard of before.
What's her name?
Garamara Martins.
Yeah, I heard the name. Yeah, know the name.
Have you heard the
Yeah.
name? But she's Brazilian too, and I'm assuming they're playing together so that they can sort of trial for the Olympics and things like that. Because Beatriz Haddad Maia was with Townsend earlier in the year, so interesting to see what happens there. So those are the draws. Those are the first round matches we'll be looking at. I've kind of teased this already, but the watch list will be coming back for this Grand Slam. So every day, and now there are four different sort of like emojis that I've put together. We're probably not going to hit all four because not every day is going to have a popcorn match and not every day is going to have an upset. But we will highlight a few matches that if you're on the grounds at Wimbledon and you don't know what to watch, hopefully that can be a little bit of a guide for you going in.
And Anastasia, I'm going to spring this on you during recording of the podcast and not off air. But I think what I'll probably do with you is I will send you a message of the matches that I'm going to go watch. Now, I think the centre court, when I'm on centre, it'll probably be that, but I might check out a grounds match when I get on the site before I head on. But yeah, I think what I'll probably do is, like, if I stay on court two, I stay on court two, but I might say this is where I am, and you can decide if you want to share that with everyone or not.
Okay. Yeah, totally. And, you know, I feel like you'll have great picks too of fun matches people should be a part of. I'm excited to see what you get to on the grounds. And it's probably gone now, unfortunately, because it was done on stories. But Renee Stubbs, who is a former Wimbledon champion, is at Wimbledon doing press work, commentary work for ESPN. And she did these stories where she walked from the village through Wimbledon, through all the tunnels, through the press room, through all the courts. And then she had a hit at Arangi, which is where all the practice matches happen. Well, when they're not on the main court, that's where they usually happen. And it was so insightful. Like, it was a tour of the grounds, but she did it on stories. So they might have expired by now, but it was really nice to see. You know, there was no one on the grounds yet. It's just press and the players. And it was really nice to sort of get the lay of the land and where things are and, you know, Henman Hill and all of that. So it was really, she showed us the sniffing dogs, which are the cutest sniffing dogs I've ever seen. They're all these like big, you know, German shepherds, and they were just like little spaniels. And I'm just like, oh, of course they are.
I'm surprised because I would have thought Wimbledon would also go on for the German Shepherd. But no, of course, we are in the erudite environment of Wimbledon. They go for the Spaniel, the Royal Spaniel.
Yep. Apparently they're great sniffing dogs. Okay, so that is our little Wimbledon preview. I hope you catch some matches. What I did want to put out here is, if you're going to Wimbledon and you want to drop us a little voice note about your experience, what it's like on the grounds, your little tips for, you know, other people who are visiting in the future, send them over, because I will probably edit them onto a few of the episodes that we're going to do during the tournament. And it's really nice. You know, sometimes I think guests and visitors who've maybe been going for years have some really great tips and tricks of, you know, when to go, where to go, what the queue is like. That would be really great too, if you have like some really great queue stories and the best time to go and all of that stuff. Send us a note. We're at groundpasspodcast@gmail.com. I will leave our email in the show notes, and we would love to hear from you. Even if it's just an email and you don't want to be on the podcast via audio, we will take anything, and they're always fun to listen to. It's time for the player of the fortnight. Nick.
Oh, Greg, you're throwing to the man who has no idea what happened in the tennis in the last 2 days.
No, I can start. I
actually do have
totally
one.
Start.
I just wanted to make you feel bad.
Okay. Of course. Well, I will start anyway. Player of the fortnight for me is Paul Jubb. Paul Jubb is a British player. He's 24 years old. He went to college in the States. He went to South Carolina, played in the NCAAs. And he has been someone who, he turned pro in 2020, which is not exactly the best time to turn pro, and you know why. But he turned pro in 2020. He's currently ranked 289 in the world, and he just beat Ben Shelton at the Mallorca Championships. He's had a pretty good run this season on grass. Not so much throughout the year, but he's definitely one to watch. I think he's had a very, very slow start post-college, sort of making waves in the pros. He kind of is at Wimbledon in one way or another throughout the years, either as a qualifier or he gets a wild card into the main draw. And he does have a wild card this year into the main draw. He's been playing very, very well. And, you know, there's something I think, because I've watched him play other seasons before, but there was something about his match against Ben Shelton, which if you haven't watched it, I would really recommend going to watch a replay. It was a phenomenal match. And he, you know, was so self-assured in his game, and you could tell. I remember at the end, and at the end of it too, his celebration at first was just so quiet. Like he won, and it's almost like all his celebrations were on the inside. He let out a yell at the end, but it was very poignant. It was a very poignant moment, and I don't know if those are the moments that almost are turning points for people, where he has now beat such a, you know, a top 20 player, and maybe this might be his opportunity to move forward and grow in the game, because he's never been to any other Grand Slam. He's been to qualifying, but has never made it through to the main draw of any other Grand Slam. So maybe this is his moment. I was looking through his social media, and he's friends with Jack Draper, and Jack Draper is making that sort of transition now. And, you know, sometimes you look at your friends and you see them doing big things, and that's inspiring to you. And who knows if that's the same for Paul Jubb. So I'm really excited to see how he does. I hope he makes it over to the States and does a little bit of the US swing so I can watch him in person. And yeah, Paul Jubb is my player of the fortnight.
So my player of the fortnight is Victoria Tomova, who made the semi-finals in Bad Homburg. In the tradition of trying to find stories that you may not have heard of, Tomova is a player who's actually got a decent grass court record. She's been to the quarterfinals of Eastbourne before, another 500 event, and looked very good in Bad Homburg. She got through qualifying. She then dismissed Tatiana Maria, former Wimbledon semi-finalist, Linda Noskova, who I thought might have looked very good on grass this year, and then narrowly beat Blinkova in the quarters, 11-9 in a deciding set tiebreak. So a lot of drama there. Unfortunately, couldn't carry that on the semi-finals against Donna Vekic. But yeah, she is someone that's, you know, Wimbledon might be that next step. It's like going the distance at Wimbledon and getting some matches under her belt. She might find it a bit tough with the draw that she's got, but I do think that she's a name that's sort of worth mentioning, because she generally has her moment in the sun on grass, and I think it's a good time to kind of give her a highlight. And she's a very exciting player to watch when she's on. So yeah, Victoria Tomova is my player of the fortnight. I will give an honourable mention to Daria Kasatkina, if anything, not because she won Eastbourne, but also because if you are kind of newer to tennis and you want to find ways of engaging with tennis, she has a YouTube channel called What the Vlog, which she shares with her girlfriend, who is a former figure skater from Latvia. And they sort of vlog behind the scenes of what it's like for tennis players at tournaments, and like they're all really good friends with sort of Russian speaking players. I'm looking forward to watching that episode, because that's going to be the first one they've recorded where she's won a title. So that's kind of the honourable mention. But in terms of like a story, because she's quite a big name, the story I think I want to highlight is Tomova.
That is a very, very good mention. The episode is actually out.
Oh, wow. They turned that around quickly.
They did. And she said that in her post for on Twitter. She was like, her girlfriend who is in charge. So I got to talk to her in Miami, and she says her girlfriend's in charge of everything, editing it and like filming it and all of that stuff. And she said she was able to like work all night and do it really quickly and put the episode out. And she was hoping everyone liked it. So that is a really good shout. I'm going to put it in the show notes of this episode, a link to it so you can watch it. I loved their podcast. I love their vlog. Sorry. It's really good behind the scenes into tournaments. Like some of the things that I've learned from them, like players having apps for tournaments and, you know, their meal money and how all the behind the scenes things work. I love that sort of stuff. I learned through her vlog. So really, really good shout for people to go watch that. So that's it. That's the pod, Nick. We did it.
We did it indeed, as always. And we're going to be doing probably a fair few more of these. Hopefully, we'll obviously have a Wimbledon wrap up in 2 weeks, but keep an eye out for other content. Exactly what we're doing is a little bit TBC. We'll definitely bring you some sort of updates from Wimbledon where we can.
Definitely. Thanks for joining. If you're listening, whatever podcast player you're listening on, please give us a rating, leave us a note. We love to read those, and it really does help the podcast. Follow us on social media if you want to know when the podcast is going to come out, because we will do a little bit of extra for Wimbledon, but it's all to be confirmed. So follow us on social media to learn all of that. We'll also have our watch list on social media. And yeah, thanks for another great episode, Nick, and we will see you all soon.